Broncos football is so back. Welcome in Broncos country to the Broncos Breakdown. It's your guy Moose hanging out with you, and we've got to start today's show, which is all about the 4 major takeaways from Broncos joint practice with some good news. Apparently, according to Matthew Berry, a high-ranking member of the Kansas City Chiefs had said, quote, "We're worried about the Broncos." So the Broncos already getting in the heads of the Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the AFC, in my opinion. Now on to some bad news. The Broncos defensive lineman Matt Henningsen is being evaluated for a possible Achilles tear. He limped off of practice yesterday, and we're fearing the worst right now, but hoping for the best. Obviously, as more news comes along, we will make sure to let you know. Like I said, 4 big takeaways from Broncos joint practice that you need to know, things that I saw that are going to be gearing up and kind of precursors to what we're going to see tomorrow at the time of this recording against the 49ers in week 1 of the preseason. Before we get into those major takeaways, these are our last 5 liked videos. As you can see, they're kind of scattered all over the place. So I set a goal for today. Let's try and get to our average, which is about 450 likes. So if you could do me a huge favor, if you love Broncos football, hit that thumbs up. It also helps support the channel. Let's start with the first major takeaway. The Broncos dominated the first half, both on offense, both on defense. 2 things you need to know from the defensive side of the football. Some very early interceptions from Ja'Quan McMillian and J.L. Skinner. J.L. Skinner just had a straight-up pick, on the play, kind of read the route perfectly, went up and grabbed it. Ja'Quan McMillian's was on a tipped pass. But both very, very early on, I believe both in the first quarter, if you want to call it that, these early interceptions. Then, also, the Broncos' defensive line was completely dominant, getting to Brock Purdy multiple times in the first and second quarter. They were just all over him all day long. Pressure after pressure, sack after sack. And 3 notable Broncos ended up with sacks earlier on in the first half. That being John Franklin Myers, Dondre Tillman, and Savion Jones finally finds his way onto this list. LSU legend who has had a quiet training camp, I'm not going to lie. However, definitely seems to be finding his footing during joint practice. Now, I will say this. There are a couple of playmakers that were definitely on display for the 49ers as well. Can't be all sunshine and rainbows for the Broncos. Christian McCaffery was catching passes out of the backfield, and he was making moves as well. But here's what you need to know that's good for the Broncos. The pass rush was all over Brock Purdy so that he could only check the ball down to Christian McCaffery. So he was trying to get this ball out super quick because the Broncos' defensive line was so stout. So clearly, Brock's dropping back, looking at his options. Defense is coming in ready to make a sack on him, so he just has to dump it outside to Christian McCaffery. So that seems to be some part of at least the 49ers offense that they put a lot of stock into. But I think this is a really, really good sign from the Broncos pass rush and their defensive line. And speaking of which, 63 sacks last year for the Broncos defense, which was leading the league. So let me know. If you think they're going to go over in 2025, type your O. And if you think they're going to go under, type your U. I think this is a really close one because 63 sacks, that's a lot of sacks. So I'm going to give my slight under, but I'm going to say 60 is definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. Either way, let me know in the comment section down below. The second major takeaway that you need to know, Bo Nix controlling the pace of play. It was reported multiple times, not only from Broncos beat reporters, but also from some 49ers beat reporters, that Bo Nix seemed to command the offense, specifically in his manipulation of the pocket. So what he's starting to do now, instead of just sitting in the pocket and making his read, or scrambling outside of the pocket and just trying to get it done with his legs, he's doing a little bit of a combination of both. Doing a little bit more what Russell Wilson did in his time in Seattle, which was do a little bit of dancing around inside the pocket and make your moves happen so that your wide receivers have more time to get open. He's been throwing across his body. He's been rifling balls inside. And inside the red zone is clearly where he's been spending a little bit more time trying to develop this part of his game. And if I go back to 2024, some things that you definitely need to know. Inside the 10-yard line, he was deadly accurate. 71 completion percentage, which was among some of the top in the NFL. I believe it was second or third. But then if you back it up 10 yards, it drastically would drop off to 63.6%, which was far lower in 2025. Or 2024, excuse me. So clearly, one of the things that Bo has been working on is that intermediate red zone offense where you're inside the 20, but you're not quite at the 10-yard line. If he can clear this up, we're going to be rocking and firing on all cylinders. Some other key notes that you need to know: that Bo hit 20-plus yard receptions to Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Courtland Sutton, with the play of the day going to Courtland Sutton in the back of the end zone. Made an unbelievable hands catch for a touchdown. The crowd kind of oohed and awed, and it was just one of those plays where you're like, that could only be between Bo Nix and his wide receiver one. Now, coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about some joint practice notes. Two things in specific. One not so good, one very, very good. But before we get into that, my friends, I'm going to be sporting some sweet Broncos gear on tomorrow's live stream against the 49ers. But if you feel like you want to take your fandom to the next level, do it with the link that I've put in the comments and description of today's video. Or you can go to chatsports.com/Broncos hoodie. Either way, if you use the link that I've put there in the comments and description, it's going to take you to this 40% off deal right now for the Broncos hoodie, but it doesn't stop there. You got hats, you got gloves, jerseys, shirzies, everything that you need to take your fandom to the next level. Do it with the link that I've put in the comments and description of today's video. Let's talk a little bit more about one of the bad takeaways here from joint practice. The 49ers picked it up in the second half. So clearly the Broncos established a firm and commanding lead in joint practice in the first half. But then in the second half, the 49ers showed up a little bit. Zach Stevens being one of the first ones on this, saying after a fantastic start to the Broncos practice, offensively and defensively, the 49ers turned it on a bit. At the final move of the ball period, Broncos defense allowed a game-winning touchdown drive in 70 seconds. Broncos offense was unable to score a touchdown, but did get into field goal range for what would have led to an overtime kind of finish, if you want to call it that. Obviously, in joint practices, they don't really keep a score, you know what I mean? But remember, the 49ers have playmakers as well. Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, Christian McCaffery, Brandon Aiyuk. And I know that the jury's kind of still up in the air on Brock Purdy, but I think we can all agree he is their franchise quarterback. So all of these players can make things happen. Now, I will say this. It was the Broncos' second unit that allowed majority of this comeback to the 49ers, which is, I don't want to call it concerning, but it is something of note. But the Broncos also forced a ton of checkdowns to C-Mac, as I previously stated in today's earlier part of the episode. So there are a lot of good takeaways to go from. The Broncos' first string and first unit pass rushers looked dominant. The second stringers probably need a little bit more pace of play, probably need a little bit more to add to their belt. But all things considered, with the amount of talent the 49ers have, I mean, we're only a couple of years removed from the 49ers being a Super Bowl team, right? They made it to the Super Bowl. And this year, I think they're a playoff team. So it's good to see that the Broncos went up against some good competition. The last thing you want to see is them go up against a team like the Panthers or the Saints, who are just going to suck. The Browns are another team that you didn't want to play in early joint practice. So the 49ers definitely have some talent on both sides of the football that should gear up the Broncos for their Week 1 matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Finally, the Broncos playmakers are making plays. Let's end on some good news. More specifically, the wide receivers. That's kind of who I want to focus on right now, because Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Courtland Sutton, all making some serious plays. Now, I realize that this chart is going to be tough to see, but what you're kind of looking at here is a play success rate for the Denver Broncos. And I want you to note something. The Broncos are a little bit low on this list. In fact, they're at 28 on this list. So the play success rate is essentially how many times a play was ran, and based off of the schematics called, was it run successfully? The Broncos clearly had some trouble last year, especially early on, with their play success rate. There were a lot of young players learning a complex offense from Sean Payton. So obviously, year 2 for a lot of these players, like Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, all of these should be a lot better in 2025. And if I'm going back to the wide receivers, we know Courtland Sutton knows this offense. He's not going to, there's no problems with him. He's going to be fine. But the next 4 guys, I'm looking for one of these guys to really establish themselves as a clear and determined wide receiver 2 for Bo Nix. That could be Marvin Mims, that could be Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, or even Pat Bryant, who's had an unbelievable training camp. Either way, year 2 in this offense for a lot of these younger players who came off their rookie seasons or heading into year 3 should be a lot better and a lot different looking. So more play success in 2025, at least according to the analytics of it all. So how many Broncos wide receivers, speaking of, will have more than 500 receiving yards in 2025? I'm going to say Courtland Sutton for sure. I'm going to say Marvin Mims for sure, and I'm going to say Troy Franklin for sure. So I'm penciling in 3, but you let me know in the comment section down below. Remember, we are trying to get to 450 likes on today's episode. If you love what you saw, you like more content like this, and you just want to keep up with the Denver Broncos, we are the place to do it. So do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. It helps grow the channel. That is going to do it for us on today's episode. We are going to be live tomorrow. It's going to be a blast. We'll be live at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, which is 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. I will see you there. As always, my friends, mile high salute. Be cool.